Ayy, look, yeah, ayy. I'm in the lab like Dexter, brand new batch he tested. I'm with all the extras, don't try and bitch, I'm pressure. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers. I'm the type to step on steppers, I'm the type to step on steppers.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the New Media Podcast. I'm your host, Ya. We hope you enjoyed the last episode because, as always, today's going to be an even better episode. Of course, I got the whole crew with me. Everybody's in the house today, and today we're going to keep it very short and very sweet. Week 1 of the 2023 NFL season has just wrapped up. Last game has been already played right now, New York Jets versus the Buffalo Bills. So, of course, we'll go ahead and give our takeaways from majority of the games. Very different from what we did last year. Only talk about like the big games and the big highlights from what happened this past weekend. You know, we'll also talk about the biggest surprises, the biggest disappointments, and then we'll go ahead and close out with which quarterback was the best quarterback from week 1 of the NFL season. But of course, before we jump into all of that, temperature check. How's everybody doing tonight?
Man, if your team didn't go 1-0, I don't want to hear you talk. If you did not get a win week 1, do not speak. Everybody in here, I think they had a fairly easy matchup on paper. We all came in expecting other teams to win, and that ain't happened, man. Some of y'all ain't get a win. I don't know that feeling. I want to know. I'm undefeated. So week 1, baby, let's get it.
You know he's not going to keep that energy week 17.
You just lost it. You just lost the 2-2 at will, bro.
Don't worry about that. But week 17 comes, his energy's always down, so you know what to expect. But yeah, man, slow week 1, man. I didn't want to speak too much about it, but we'll probably get into this game hopefully.
Yeah, man. You know, losing to Baker Mayfield is one thing, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. But overall, though, this first week of football was, like Big H mentioned, it was extremely slow for me. Not many touchdowns being scored, and in terms of fantasy stuff like that, if you only had a couple of guys that went off, then you probably came out very victorious. But of course, let's move on from all of that. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. We'll do things a little bit differently this season. We'll start off with the last game that we just watched, the Monday Night Football matchup between the Buffalo Bills and the New York Jets. All the hype surrounding this game coming into this season, everything was going right for these two franchises. Obviously they're about to kick off the first Monday Night Football of the 2023 NFL season. It's Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills try to go on their last dance tour. Meanwhile, you have Aaron Rodgers on the other side. Very first time with a different franchise with the New York Jets looking to lead those guys to a Super Bowl. And 4 snaps in, 4 plays in, Aaron Rodgers is already out of the game. Initial test said that it was an ankle injury, but now we've just officially gotten word that team has feared it's an Achilles injury and Aaron Rodgers will be out for the season. But even with Aaron Rodgers out, Zach Wilson, the guy who his understudy, stepped in and won this game in overtime, 22-16. It was off of a punt return, I believe, in overtime to walk these guys off. But man, what a blow to the Jets. Let's go ahead and get our takeaways from obviously this game itself and then the Aaron Rodgers news.
Well, for one, I mean, the Jets defense, we've been raving about it since last year. We're talking about how they were getting this team wins last season, even with a terrible quarterback situation, with the offense unable to perform. And again, the defense absolutely showed out tonight. I mean, Jordan Whitehead, phenomenal. Quincy Williams, phenomenal. A bunch of guys on that defense showed up. The defensive line constantly getting pressure on Josh Allen. I mean, these guys, it's unfortunate that Aaron Rodgers went down, but this is a elite unit. This is as good as it gets. And last year, the criticism against his defense really only was, generating turnovers. And in this game, they did exactly that. Aaron Rodgers goes down. That's a huge hit to your morale. The Bills have a chance to really solidify themselves and open up this NFL season with a win over your divisional rivals. And next thing you know, Zach Wilson and the Jets have different plans. Zach Wilson, I do believe that there was training wheels on him, and rightfully so. It's hard to open up the playbook for him, but outside of that terrible pick that he had, he did his job fairly. He protected the football, and Breece Hall looked phenomenal tonight. Phenomenal, especially for someone coming off an ACL injury, and he's going to get more and more reps and get better and better as the season goes on. Garrett Wilson, disgusting touchdown, absolutely ridiculous. He fried Tre'Davious White on that, caught it right on him. This Jets defense, they're just sluggish, man. They get after it, and to seal it off with that punt return is just icing on the cake. And to speak about the Aaron Rodgers situation, I mean, Yeah, that's unfortunate. You know, when you talk about things that are unfortunate, that's as unfortunate as it gets. I mean, you traded for this guy. You know, you had a vision that this guy was going to take you places, take you to the playoffs, take you far into the playoffs. And next thing you know, he ruptures his Achilles, and you know, it sucks for this team. And you know, people are talking about what are the options for the Jets. I mean, should they really roll with Zach Wilson? You know, should they look to go out and get a guy like Dorian Thompson from the Browns if they're possibly able to do that? You know, go out for some backup Gardner Minshew, Carson Wentz, someone that's able to at least give better production than Zach Wilson, because you know this offense, you don't want to repeat of last year where this offense is struggling and the defense is doing all they can, because you can't keep them out there forever. So, you know, amazing win. And to talk about Josh Allen, I mean, you would think after last season, the criticism against him and the constant turnovers, the fumbles, just the way that he was playing, that you'd expect that he would improve on it. And yeah, in this game, he was just erratic again. You know, it seems like nothing has changed with Josh Allen. He just it feels like every season since 2020, he's gotten worse and worse in terms of protecting the football, and nothing has changed today. I mean, to throw 3 picks to the same guy is absurd, and you know, it's a disappointment to see. A lot of people had him as favorites for their MVP, and you know, he kicked off the season terribly.
That's very nice, Big H. But yeah, I think I want to start off with the Aaron Rodgers news, man, because I think that's extremely brutal. Especially coming into this game, you know, all the hype surrounding this game specifically, the Jets franchise as a whole. You know, man, oh man, I was actually pretty excited to see what the Jets were going to look like with Aaron Rodgers under center. And even though they did win tonight, you know, they were going to win pretty comfortably if Aaron Rodgers played. You know, basically, you know how the game played out. The Jets probably would have won this game pretty comfortably with him under center. But you know, like you said, man, it's a very unfortunate situation. You know, now the Jets have to turn to Zach Wilson. Robert Saleh did come out after the post game and said that Zach Wilson's going to be the starter for the rest of the season.
Can you guys hear me?
I don't believe it. Yeah, we hear you though. But yeah, Zach Wilson, you know, being the starter, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying Robert Saleh saying that Zach Wilson's going to be a starter. I don't think he played great tonight. You know, he did a decent job, you know, coming in on short notice. You know, obviously, I'm pretty sure he wasn't expecting to touch the field at all this season unless it was a blowout. But for him to come in and kind of just steady the ship after that interception and stuff like that to keep this team afloat, you know, it's good for the New York Jets. But for the future, if the New York Jets want to be better than what they were last year, they know that this guy can't be the guy under center. So I'm looking forward to seeing what moves they make in the free agency market right now, whatever quarterback's available or whatever backup quarterbacks available on any franchise that's good enough to start for this team. The Jets should probably give every team a call in this league, and I think that's exactly what they'll do. But overall, man, this Jets defense, you know, they came in and they played for Aaron Rodgers. They had his back all the way through. You know, obviously the offense got off to a slow start besides Breece Hall really doing his thing. I'm very interested to see how they kind of handle that, you know, backfill situation with him and Dalvin Cook. Obviously, they signed Dalvin Cook in the offseason, and, you know, they paid him a good amount of money to kind of be that guy, be that running back to kind of help Breece Hall get back up on his feet, you know, until he's up and running. But tonight, you know, Breece Hall hit the ground running. It was pretty disappointing to see him get, you know, caught on that breakaway, 80-yard run. But, you know, he's still getting his legs back from under him. He did a great job tonight with about 100 plus yards on 10, 11 carries. So, you know, I'm pretty sure, you know, coming into next week, he'll just be perfectly fine. So, you know, this defense did his job. They balled out. And then for Josh Allen, you know, it's the same old story, just a different year, you know, just nothing's changed for the Buffalo Bills, man. They're one-dimensional offense. You know, obviously it was nice to see, you know, James could get more involved in the run game and in the passing game as well. But it was just Josh Allen playing catch with Stephon Diggs. You know, obviously we got a little bit of Gabe Davis here and there, a little bit of Dalton Kincaid, but outside of that, you know, obviously Josh Allen and all of his turnovers came from him trying to force feed the ball to Stephon Diggs, and that fumble was a costly fumble. That's the one that I did miss. I didn't see that, but next thing you know, the Jets are in field goal range and they're in the red zone, ready to, you know, put some points up on the board. And you know, it's the Buffalo Bills, they got to act fast, man. You know, their Super Bowl window is closing every single day, and for Josh Allen to come out and play like this, you know, just week one, you know, I wonder what the rest of the season has in store for him and the Buffalo Bills franchise. And you know, it's not a good feeling, you know, coming out of this game 0-1, losing to an Aaron Rodgers-less New York Jets team. But you know, like I said, all the credit in the world to the New York Jets and their game plan and their defense for really coming through and stepping up.
Hey man, shout out to the Jets, man. I think I'm the only one between us three that picked them to win this week. Rodgers went down the first 4 plays. almost turn off the game, man. But that defense, very, very resilient. You know, the offense wasn't really producing much that first half. It wasn't. It was a lot of empty drives coming out of it. Other than those 2 or 3 big plays Brees Hall had, they weren't really doing much on the offensive side of the ball. But on the defensive side of the ball, man, they kept their team in the game. You know, forcing Josh Allen to have 4 turnovers, Whitehead having 3 interceptions. But you know, Diggs, phenomenal day. He cooked up. He cooked Reed. He cooked Garner. Those corners were getting picked apart. But whenever the ball was coming down midfield, Whitehead was there. You know, he ended up with 3 interceptions. So, you know, shout out him. He balled out. But these guys, you know, for almost 3 quarters, they've been waiting on the offense to get him a touchdown. And that finally happened. You know, they got the touchdown. Wilson had a couple nice plays that drive, and then he found Garrett Wilson in the back end zone. Ball was kind of thrown bad, but what a touchdown catch by Wilson to bring that in. You know, big play guy. He was waiting for Rodgers to give him his first touchdown this year, but you know that injury, you know, made stuff happen, different stuff happen. So for me, Josh Allen coming into this game, and you know, division rival game, just the stupid mistakes. You know, forcing the ball to get thrown. It's like, you know, you're forcing it to double coverage for what? Like heaving it down the field 65 yards for what in double coverage, knowing that it might get picked off as an incomplete pass. So for him, you know, he got to shore up the turnovers. This always been an issue. Having 4 in the game, pretty crazy to me. And the Jets, I don't know where they go forward with Zach Wilson from here. You know, not really much on the market as for backup quarterbacks. Gardner Minshew, I don't think the Browns are going to trade their backup rookie quarterback that they just drafted. I don't think that's going to be an option on the table. Carson Wentz.
Maybe someone like where's Jacoby Brissett?
Brissett's
I think Jacoby Brissett's in Washington, I want to say.
He's in Washington. Maybe a guy like Matt Ryan. I don't think Matt Ryan's retired fully yet, but maybe you bring that type of guy.
That guy commentating, right? Don't bring that man in.
That brother is done.
New York, man. But nah, I don't really see an option a viable, better option than Zach Wilson right now as a backup. There's a lot of backup quarterbacks better than Zach White, but who knows what's going to happen, you know? Sad, you know, to speak about the Rodgers situation. You know, they're talking about him tearing his Achilles, and it kind of did look like that on the field, and it's kind of scary, man. You know, the guy's sitting at age 39. How's he going to come back from this injury? What's in plans for him? Maybe he might retire this offseason if he doesn't want to come back, you know. Maybe this injury is going to take him a while. So Jets got a lot of thinking to do. They traded a lot of picks for this guy, you know, and I mean, it's going to be tough. But, I mean, they do keep their pick if Rodgers doesn't play 70% of their games, right? Isn't that the case with the Packers?
Yeah, that's the case with the Green Bay Packers. So that's
that's a plus on their side. I'm not to shit on the injury, but maybe in the future that pick could turn out to be something. But yeah, tough game for the Bills though. Josh Allen got to show up.
No, they lose. They lose the pick. They don't get that first rounder if he doesn't play 70%. Apparently, that's a stipulation.
If he doesn't.
See, if he doesn't play 70% of snaps, like if he doesn't play 70% play time, so I guess that's like what 9, 10 games on the season, maybe 12 actually. So if he doesn't play that much, then we lose that first rounder. Which is kind of
so you guys already lost the first round pick pretty much.
Yep.
So that's tough, man. There's got to be something in the fine print of that contract, man. That trade details, because that doesn't seem like a fair deal, man. But it's just an overall tough situation, and it's going to be interesting to see where the New York Jets move forward from here, because Zach Wilson is not that guy to lead this franchise. But let's go ahead and jump right back into Thursday's game, the first game of the season that kicked off the NFL season, between the Detroit Lions and the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs, of course, were without their star tight end Travis Kelce and their star defensive tackle Chris Jones due to contract issues, and Kelce was injured. But the Lions, they just rained on the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl parade and came into Kansas City and won this game 21-20. To start off the season, upset the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs didn't look particularly good, so I guess my question to you guys is, should we be worried about the Kansas City Chiefs?
I mean, I wouldn't say worried. I'm a bit concerned, but, Travis Kelce opens up a lot for this offense, and, I expect the wide receivers that are currently there to improve on their play, but, Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore and, Rich, like a lot of these guys that are just there, like, they're not even wide receiver 2 level players or wide receiver 3s. Some of them are gadget players. They're just not bona fide wide receiver ones. Last year, at least Juju Smith was like a wide receiver 2. You had MVS who was going down the field as a wide receiver 2. And, you had Miko Hardman there. So you had decent enough options. And now you come into this game, and it felt like part of it came down to Mahomes' play. I don't think Mahomes particularly played great at all. He was missing routine throws that he would make. I don't know if it was a trust thing. He felt like he couldn't get these guys the ball. But again, Kadarius Toney had an awful night. Multiple crucial drops and stuff like that costs you. And at the same time, the Lions, they took their shots. They had their chances. They fought tooth and nail to be in this game. And all credit to them. I don't really want to put an asterisk on this game just because Travis Kelce was out. Mahomes should have played better. Plain and simple. And I am a bit concerned if Travis Kelce is out for an extended period of time because who's going to step up to the plate. Sky Moore, we've been hearing his name for 2 years now. The fantasy gurus have been absolutely tricking us for 2 years now. I gotta stop believing them on this. Kadarius Toney, I mean, the guy probably needs to stick to rap. Everybody else on this roster, I just, it's hard to trust this team as it stands right now. And that part of that comes from Mahomes. I feel like he just needs to give some of these guys an opportunity because, at the end of the day, he has to trust these guys if he wants to make it work without Travis Kelce. So.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, these crucial drops, especially that pick six, right through Kadarius Toney's hands and fell right into Brian Branch's hands. He took that home and it was like nothing. You feel me? Like a couple of these catches they're supposed to be made. They're supposed to be yards after the catch. They're supposed to be big gains. And I feel like Mahomes put him in the position to make those catches, and those catches are not tough for receivers like them. Man, these guys are in the league. What are they doing every day? They're supposed to be training. They're supposed to be making those tough catches, and they didn't. And I feel like down the drive for the Chiefs, Mahomes, he didn't have his playmakers. I mean, you got to continue the game on. I feel next man up, next player up, but all of your receivers not catching the ball and going 2 for 12, targeting your receiver options in the second half is 6 or 7. They got it tied up. I mean, I give a couple of those throws from Mahomes. He could have been better, but he put them in a position where a couple of them shouldn't have been, dropped, and it should have been gains, especially the one that Toney dropped. And, it was pick six, and then there was another one in the fourth quarter where Toney was wide open, and he turned his head a little bit early, and he dropped that one too down the middle. It was wide open again. He could have been a 15 to 20 yard gainer after that. So these mistakes for them, they got to fix up, shore up. I feel like I don't think they got to panic about this. People are saying they should panic after Tyreek Hill left. I mean, you could say they have Miko Hardman and guys like that, Juju, But at the same time, when Kelce comes back, I feel like Kelce's going to lead the helm and these receivers are going to follow through. So I wouldn't panic about the Chiefs and the Lions. They play good. They came in. I feel like they had a game plan, run the ball up the gut, force feed to Montgomery and find St. Brown. Felt like the offense was a little slow until they got that pick six on defense, which kind of woke them up. And felt like we're going to see a little better showings from them. I expected to see Gibbs a lot more, but we didn't see him that much. But with the touches that he did have, he looked phenomenal. And I expect Dan Campbell to put him into the game more and let him go off. So this offense, they got a lot of potential. So we'll see what happens once they get healthy, once they get their guys back. So Williamson and we'll see what happens. But good one for the Lions, But receivers for the Chiefs, they got to shore up though. Yeah, I'm mute.
Wait, there we go. I'm kind of on the fence with this one. I think on one side, I'm telling myself I shouldn't be worried at all about this team. Every time I try to doubt this team and bring up any little thing to kind of hurt the Kansas City Chiefs and stop their chances from winning a Super Bowl, it always just backfires in my face. But I feel like we got to be realistic in this situation because if their whole entire offense is really just based on Travis Kelce opening up the field for every other receiver on this team, then we should have to worry. We should worry about this team a little bit. We should worry about the Kansas City Chiefs just a tad bit. There's just not many good receivers on this roster from top to bottom. And if Travis Kelce is the entire offense, if he goes down one more time and has to miss an extended period of time, what are the Kansas City Chiefs going to do then? So I think people should be a little bit concerned. They should be a little bit worried, that's for sure. But at the same time, I think the Kansas City Chiefs have to understand that, they can't just rely heavily on just Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce going out there playing catch like father and son. This is a franchise that has won Super Bowls before. They've won it with Tyreek Hill. They've won it without him. They have to go out there in the market right now and try to acquire the best available receiver that wants to come to this team and wants to win a Super Bowl or have the opportunity to win a Super Bowl. Obviously we've been hearing talks about Mike Evans being very unhappy with this contract situation in Tampa. That's a guy that I would give a call to right now and make a move for. There's absolutely no reason for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to be holding on to a guy like that, a guy that's going to be hitting the free agency market this upcoming offseason. And the Kansas City Chiefs could desperately use a playmaker like that. But overall, though, to get back to this game wasn't on Mahomes whatsoever. I didn't see any trust issues out there. I didn't see anything of that sort. I think Mahomes actually did pretty good job at not having any trust issues going into this game, knowing that his wide receiver one, Travis Kelce, wasn't going to be out there on the field with him. These guys just couldn't catch the damn ball to save their lives. Kadarius Toney is probably going to be on I Am Athlete this upcoming week because there's no reason he should be having a job in the NFL. Sky Moore, a guy that had an opportunity to make a play on that fourth down or that third and long, I believe. Mahomes kind of, although he was scrambling outside of the pocket trying to make a play, I think that was a well-placed ball. It might have been a little bit too high for Sky Moore, but Sky Moore, got a hand on it. So if you're able to get a hand on it, you got to go up. You got to go up and make a play for your team. But all these other guys that they have, Rashee Rice, Justin Ross, I think Rashee Rice scored in this specific game, but this receiving core is not that great. And this is the same issue coming into last season. People had their doubts last season, but Mahomes made everybody look like a fool, by capping off last season with a Super Bowl. But I think this is a very different situation, man. It's not McCole Hardman, it's not MVS, it's not Juju. This is Sky Moore, Rashee Rice, Justin Ross, Kadarius Toney that you're dealing with. It's completely different. Although they do have MVS on this roster, I believe still, but it's a little bit different, man. When you got a bunch of new guys trying to fix things up on the fly, and so for the Kansas City Chiefs, I think they'll be all right. I think Travis Kelce is expected to come back this upcoming week, and I think things will get back on track. But that's definitely one thing that they do have to monitor leading up to the trade deadline. The best available wide receiver that's disgruntled and wants out of his franchise, they have to go out there and grab that guy. And they don't even have to pay him for extension, like a huge extension or anything like that. Obviously people, star wide receivers want to put themselves in the best position possible to win a Super Bowl, and obviously also get paid at the same time. But if they're able to cap off their season with a Super Bowl, it only boosts up their stock, and it's pretty much a win-win for both sides. So nothing to worry about for the Kansas City Chiefs. So they'll be all right. They'll bounce back next week. And for the Detroit Lions, man, these guys shocked me in this one. Jahmyr Gibbs, the explosive running back that he is, he came out and did his thing. The little 1-2 punch they had between him and Montgomery. Jared Goff played an excellent game, just keeping the ball out of harm's way. Hasn't had an interception in a while. It's been, I think, maybe since like the middle of last season since he's thrown up an interception. And so, the game plan, they executed it perfectly. They earned this one, whether or not, people want to put an asterisk on it because of, Kadarius Toney dropping passes or Travis Kelce not being healthy. At the end of the day, it's any given Sunday, and you have to go out there and compete no matter who's across from you on the other side of the field. And so, all the credit in the world to the Detroit Lions, although I'm not a, huge fan of those guys getting a win and us losing this week. They did what they're supposed to do. We were supposed to win, and they're the ones that's supposed to lose, but it was the complete opposite this weekend. And so, I'm looking forward to seeing how their season plays out. We'll see what they do next week, whoever they got, and the Kansas City Chiefs, they'll try to bounce back next week as well. But aside from all that, this week has been a very, very interesting week, because we already have Josh Allen losing. We already had Patrick Mahomes losing. We also have the highest paid player in NFL history losing, only putting up 3 points as well in the first game of the season. That's Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. Those guys went into Cleveland. Deshaun Watson, first training camp with his Cleveland Browns team. And, they were able to, win this game 24-3. And, are you guys starting to believe the Cleveland Browns hype now?
I mean, I'm not going to lie. I think every AFC North quarterback played terrible this week. I don't think any of them particularly stood out to me at all. I mean, Joe Burrow, you can definitely see a combination of the rust of not playing preseason because of the injury that he picked up, and at the same time, the pressure from the Cleveland Browns pass rush. I mean, they were getting home multiple times. The O-line seemed to collapse, and Joe Burrow's routinely missing throws that he would make. And if you look at his passing chart, it seemed like he was just avoiding the middle of the field, which for a guy like Joe Burrow, that should be cash money. And so. When you look back at this game, the pass rush from Cleveland, Myles Garrett, and those guys, They did a phenomenal job of just disrupting Joe Burrow, and offensively, I mean, Deshaun Watson didn't look the greatest. Maybe you can chalk it up to Russ, but I think for him, by his standards and what people are expecting him, I don't think it was a great performance. But at the end of the day, his team got the win. The defense played phenomenal, and they played lights out. Jamar Chase spoke a little bit too early, when he was talking about these guys, and they stepped up to the plate. I feel like just the overall effort from this team. When I was looking at this game, I was just wondering what in the world are the Bengals doing, and it just feels like this is a week one start every year for Joe Burrow. I mean, last year he threw 4 picks, and this year again he's terrible. It's like a week one routine for this guy. He seems to always start off slow, so I expect better from this Bengals offense. I expect better from Joe Burrow and the rest of his team, especially considering he's the highest paid quarterback in the NFL now, the highest paid player in the NFL. So, and for the Cleveland Browns, I mean, continue they just to get Deshaun Watson back into rhythm. He made a couple good throws and made a couple bad throws, and a couple bad reads, and it's a mixed performance from him. But overall, the team got the win, and the defense they did their job, so you can't really complain.
Yeah, another slow week for week one for Joe Burrow. Last year throwing four interceptions and a fumble against the Steelers, another division rival team, and then coming out this week, a lot of rust on him. He didn't practice in the preseason. He didn't play any preseason games. He was hurt and having only 82 yards, and it was very slow outgoing for the offense. And Browns defense got to shout them out. Myles Garrett in the front seven, they performed well. They were getting to the quarterback. They were putting pressure on him. They were sacking him. And they held them to 82 yards on the passing game. And for the offense, Browns, okay game. Not even, I don't think it's an okay game having 150 yards, a touchdown, and interception. I mean, it was a better game than Joe Burrow's, but and then today he had a good game, or to say Watson led them to a W, I don't believe that. I believe it was, carried on by Nick Chubb and guys like that. The defense, they play phenomenal. So, I wouldn't chalk Watson to having a good game. Like Abdi said, he believes all 4 quarterbacks in that division had horrible games, and they all did. Coming from Lamar to Kenny Pickett to Joe B, and Watson may have the best game at them 4, but it was barely better than anything. So, good one for the Browns. They're very sound on defense. And they believe in that run game. But Joey B, he gonna bounce back. I'm not worried about Joey B. Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, pretty much you hit it right on the head, man. I think the Cincinnati Bengals are starting to get comfortable with just having week one stinkers and then kind of just trying to get back on track the following week. Only issue is they just got done playing a division rival yesterday, and now they got to go. They got to go into a home game into at Cincinnati against the Baltimore Ravens, and so it's just like there's not much time for these guys to kind of just have a easy game where they can just kind of be hitting on all cylinders and to build out and go ahead and just build off that. But for the Bengals, I think they'll be all right. Just have to shake off the rust for Joe Burrow. Obviously a lot of pressure came with him becoming the highest paid NFL player in the history of the sport, and so it was smart by the Bengals to pull him out late in that game. But to get back to this Cleveland Browns team, man, I've been trying to tell you guys about the Cleveland Browns, and although I might have been pushing a lot of Deshaun Watson, propaganda onto you guys, they also got some dogs on the other side of the field, man. These guys played a hell of a game defensively, coming in and absolutely shutting out this Bengals offense, and they're explosive playmakers. Jamar Chase talking a little bit too early. These guys talking about these guys like, Cleveland's going to be Cleveland, and these guys are just elves, and I'm pissed we lost to elves. Well, you got to go out there and perform, man. The Cleveland Browns are legit. They got some playmakers on the defensive side of the ball, and Deshaun Watson's only going to get better and better. Although he might have had the best game out of every quarterback in his division, I still think he had a pretty decent game. Rushing for a touchdown, throwing for a touchdown, had a stupid interception in the game, but overall, for a guy that's shaking off the rust, and his defense balling out and leading his team to a win, I think it's a pretty solid day in the office because I know he'll only continue to get better and better from here on out. And if this defense continues to play like it did yesterday, it's going to be a tough outing for the rest of the teams in the division. And these guys also have a division game coming up on Monday night, playing the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so, Myles Garrett, sizing up the guard or the center of the Cincinnati Bengals and then pretty much applying pressure to Joe Burrow and making Joe Burrow move around in the pocket. it's absolutely crazy, and it's also disrespectful. If I'm a Bengals fan, I'm not going to forget that one coming into their next matchup later on down the season. But man, these guys are special on the defensive side of the ball. Offensively, they do got to get it a little bit going. Nick Chubb was phenomenal though. With his carries and his touches, 18 touches, 106 yards. It's only going to be up for him in this season with nobody to compete with in that backfield. And Bengals will be just fine. But overall, it's a great win for the Cleveland Browns. And let's go ahead and talk about this Jaguars Colts game. It's probably one of the few games I want to talk about. The Jaguars were able to win this game 31-21. Trevor Lawrence had himself a very, very solid day. Calvin Ridley, welcome back to the NFL, had himself a very great game. And we also got to see a little bit of Anthony Richardson and what he's capable of doing out there on the football field as a QB1 for this franchise. And I would say he had a pretty good game for himself. So let's go ahead and get some takeaways about this game.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, especially for a rookie standard, I think Anthony Richardson played pretty well. I think better than what people are expecting. He had an interception, but the threat of him just getting outside the pocket, just an absolute phenomenal athlete. And some of the throws that he was making, I mean, it's just an example of the tools that are at his disposal. I think this guy is an absolute stud of an athlete, and he just seems to have the attitude of trying to get better at week in and week out. And I like the fact that Shane Steichen, the head coach, seemed to lock into Anthony Richardson. He seems bought in, and he threw him into the fire, and he understands what he is, and he's a rookie, but at the same time he threw into the fire. He wanted to see what he was capable of, and I think he responded pretty well. He made this a fairly competitive game, and you'd like to see that from this team, especially missing a guy like Jonathan Taylor, who could really, those two, that combination of being able to run read option between those two, I think that can end up being something that's dangerous. But Anthony Richardson, I think amongst all the rookies, I think he had the best day definitely out of all the rookie quarterbacks. And then when you look at it the other side, I mean, Calvin Ridley, we had an idea what he was going to be like when he comes back, and he was that and more. I mean, just absolutely shredding every single Colts defensive player that was guarding him. If you leave him in man coverage, he's going to fry. He was going to find the open zone, and he did exactly that. And Travis Etienne had himself a pretty good day as well. And so overall, this team, we already knew the offensive weapons at Trevor Lawrence's disposal, and this guy was just making throws that just speak volume to the amount of talent that he has. So I'm excited to see this team, this Jaguars team coming up. And another surprise that I don't think people are talking about enough is Trayvon Walker. He had a really, really good game, constantly being a disruptor, getting in the backfield. I think he was showing people why he went that high in the draft and why he went number one. So this Jaguars team, I'm locked in. I want to see how far this team can go because they're looking fun on offense.
Man, the Jags on offense, man. We waited for Ridley to come back, and he performed. He hooped. So, him, T-Law, Etienne, those three guys right there are some hoopers. Etienne had a phenomenal game. And on the defensive side of the ball, man, they held up. They held up. Anthony Richardson was, he was making some progressions. He was making some good throws. He involved. A lot of people were saying, oh, Pittman's not going to be involved in this offense. He's not going to be looked at. They're going to test Richardson. To me, Richardson, I think he played a phenomenal game. One thing Lawrence said to him at the end of the game was that, a lot of these hits you don't have to take early on. It's the first game of the season. Just try to protect yourself. And I feel like that's one thing he's going to learn. Try to escape the pocket and forcing, those hits, and instead of just getting down and not taking them hits. But I feel like the Colts, when Jonathan Taylor comes back, they got a nice little squad. They're playing good against them. A couple mistakes here and there. And, if they fix that up, they can be a good team. But Anthony Richardson, to me, looked like the best rookie quarterback out there this week. I feel like he played the best out of the three. So, to me, he put out a good outing, and we'll see what the Colts do. They got something to build on with him. So, for me, we talked about the Jags hype. That offense is real. Two guys that weren't really involved much, though, Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk. Not really involved much, but once they do get involved, it's gonna be filthy in the league. So, I can't wait to see that.
After Calvin really burned me in fantasy 2 years ago, it was very, very nice to see him, make it up to me and helping me get my first win with that touchdown and that phenomenal day he had. Could have had himself a second touchdown if he didn't step out of bounds, but it is what it is. I'll go ahead and take the points that he provided for me. But man, this is one of the few games that were very, very entertaining, very interesting from the 10 o'clock slate of games. That was pretty boring 10 o'clock slate, but these two teams, they were going at it, and it was amazing to see Anthony Richardson just ball out completely, man. And, that's a guy that I'm extremely high on coming into this year. Coming out of the draft, I was extremely high on him because the potential is through the roof with this guy. But, I'm just hoping that he can kind of learn from what, Cam Newton went through and, not have to put his body at risk like that. It was great advice from Trevor Lawrence, to tell him, not to take those type of hits. And, he did end up getting banged up towards the end of the game, but I think he'll be fine and ready to go to play against the Houston Texans upcoming week. And, that's a matchup that I'm waiting to see, because that's CJ Stroud versus Anthony Richardson, two rookie quarterbacks that went top five in the NFL draft. But overall, man, the Jaguars, we already talked about it. They're hyping their offense is going to be explosive, and I'm looking forward to seeing them carry that, over into the rest of the season and see how far they can take this thing. But let's go ahead and move off from the 10 o'clock slated games. And let's go ahead and get to, America's game of the week between these two teams. And you guys already know what I'm about to say right now, between the Miami Dolphins and the Los Angeles Chargers. This game was at 1 o'clock in the afternoon for us, America's game of the week. And the Miami Dolphins were able to escape this game by winning 36 to 34. Tyreek Hill, 200 yards. Tua Tagovailoa once again showcasing why he's a great quarterback in this league and why he can lead this Miami Dolphins team to a Super Bowl. But I want you guys to just finally admit that you guys can just put down the Tua hate and the Tua agendas. Just push that to the side and let's finally start believing in this Miami Dolphins team. Let's start finally believing in Tua.
Week 1, by the way, but I'm not gonna sit here and tell you Tua played bad. I think he played absolutely phenomenal. It was an aggressive game plan coming into this game. I mean, I think he had 8 passes to 20 plus yards, just pushing the ball down the field. And Brandon Staley needs to look back at this because they put up 34 points on offense and they still lost this game. I mean, what does that say about this team? How can you leave Tyreek Hill on single coverage almost every single play? I mean, you leave him on J.C. Jackson alone for that 1 touchdown. It just felt like the game plan coming in, like the respect for Tyreek Hill just needs to be there from these head coaches. They need to view Tyreek Hill as the most dangerous player in the NFL on offense. I mean, you just cannot sleep on this guy at once. And so the plan was to be aggressive, and that's exactly what it was. Tua, he made multiple big-time throws in this game, and he played lights out. And then when you look at Justin Herbert on the other side, I think he had a fairly good game overall. I mean, he was pushing the ball down the field himself, and his questions need to be asked again about Brandon Staley. And it feels like questions are always asked about him every single year. Your defense cannot just get shredded like that, and it just doesn't make any sense to allow Tyreek Hill to go for 200 plus yards. I understand Tyreek Hill; he's a great quarterback, and Justin Herbert, he was making critical throws. He was making big time throws, and yet somehow you still end up losing this game. So the Chargers need to look at themselves and ask questions about why are things going wrong already week 1. You surrender that many points. Does that bode well for us coming down for the rest of the season? And for the Dolphins, I mean, they open up this week with a big week. Tua probably had, in my opinion, I think the best quarterback performance of everybody this week. He for 400 plus yards. I mean, this guy was just lights out. Other than that, that blip, the interception, the turnover that he had, I think he was great. So, props to him. I think this Dolphins offense, of course, it can be dangerous, but the Chargers leaving single coverage on Tyreek Hill is just probably the stupidest thing that you can do. You're just asking yourself to get beat up. So,
you don't think the Dolphins can just continue this type of play for the rest of the season and be considered as Super Bowl contenders?
Do I think Tyreek Hill is going to go for 200 yards a week? No. Do I think this offense can be high powered? Sure. Do I think that they can be beat? For sure. Do I think they're contenders? No, I do not think they're contenders.
The Tua hate is just absolutely absurd.
Tua played great. Simple.
Not good enough. Not good enough to convince you that he's the guy to lead the way for a Super Bowl run. I mean,
nah. Because there's a lot of guys. There's a lot of guys in that AFC, man. This is just week 1. We're just getting started.
Tyreek, man, we throwing fade routes to 5'9" receivers in the end zone. You know how crazy that is?
Only Tua can do that, man. Only Tua can get that in the right spot. The precision and the accuracy.
He had some nice throws in the game, man. Especially that one where he stepped up in the pocket and he launched it to Tyreek on the right side of the sideline.
Nice plays. 10, man.
Some nice plays, So, the Dolphins, phenomenal game, man. The offense, it was an offensive shootout. Obviously, both of these defenses did not show up whatsoever. They stayed home. But, Tua and Tyreek, they came out there. They won the game in the end. Tyreek is one of the best offensive players in the league, top 2 probably. If Tua was healthy last year, who knows what could have happened? He could have touched 2,000 yards, but I
I think this year it's in plain sight that he touches it. I feel like he's gonna break that record. I think him and Tua are gonna be connecting every single game. I just don't think I don't know how you stop that, especially when you put him in the slot and he's doing all these little crossing routes through the middle. You got strong safeties guarding him. You got linebackers chasing him. I don't know how you're gonna stop that. Offensively, it's gonna be tough. I feel like the Chargers this time, Herbert and them offensively they showed up. Eckler had a phenomenal game. He cooked up on the running and the receiving side of the ball. Herbert, he didn't throw the ball a lot, but he was very efficient. He was making some great throws to Keenan Allen, finding Mike Williams down the middle in the end of the game as well, making some good throws. And I just felt like the defense, they're just getting torched. J.C. Jackson coming back, he was just getting torched. They were getting no type of real pressure. Boza, I don't think he ended up with a sack or anything. One of the highest paid DNs in the game, and he's bringing nothing to the table, and it's crazy. Like, come on now, what are we paying you for? So then I feel like last year we blamed it a lot on the offense, and why is it not moving the ball? They're not scoring a lot of points, and they're not doing much. But this time I'm gonna blame the defense, and the defense just got to plan out and go just step up and make a stop. That's it. Same goes for Miami. Although they won the game, Tua won them the game. They got the last end of it, but defense, if they shoot out like that, one team got to step up and make a stop, and Chargers gonna make a stop. So I feel like the Chargers, it's going to be up and down seasons for them. Bo's one of the highest paid guys in the league. I just don't think he deserves that.
1 tackle, 0 sacks, 0 pressure, 0 fumbles, 2 big time penalties. By the way,
like I said, what are you doing on the show running around? You really not bringing anything to the table. It's crazy to me. For me, I'm not a Tua hater like that. I just don't think he's. I just don't.
No, you are. No. Let's not sugarcoat anything, bro. You're a Tua hater, bro.
I mean, when people start throwing him in top 10 conversations, it's crazy to me. But
why would that be crazy? He
played phenomenal.
He's a great quarterback. Why are we not giving him enough credit, man?
We're gonna spin back on that at the end of the season. I just need a full season of discourse that. I'm not gonna give him 6 games, 7 games to say he's a top 10 cornerback after a 7-game. It's not enough. I need a bigger sample. If he can, bring this on 16, 17 games in the season, get him a playoff win, and there's no arguments there, But we got to wait for that. So great one. I do expect they're going to be in a lot of shootouts. But when you have Tyreek on your side, it's tough not to lose.
Yeah, that's fair enough, man. I do want to point out and say that they're starting either right tackle or left tackle. Teron Armstead wasn't playing today. Not today, but yesterday in that game. And Tua, although I know he's going to go ahead and hang up that jersey in his home, it's going to look like a brand new jersey like he just got out of the store because that guy went untouched the entire game. 0 sacks, giving up. Hell of a job by that offensive line by protecting their quarterback after what he went through last year. And also, obviously you did highlight that their defense didn't play great at all. And I do agree in that aspect, obviously giving up so many rushing yards on the ground and, Austin Eckler and Joshua Kelly pretty much had their way. Justin Herbert had himself, a great game, doing whatever he needed to do to get this team to win. But just sometimes you got to win in a shootout fashion, man. It's going to come down to who can get that stop in the very end. And the Miami Dolphins, although they had a bad defensive game, I think they found the secret sauce that Vic Fangio picked up on that very last drive where, you got to send a couple blitzes at Justin Herbert. Not even just Justin Herbert, but any quarterback in the league. You got to switch it up sometimes. You just can't really play conservative and stuff like that. And, obviously the Miami Dolphins got that stop and they're able to come out of this game victorious. But, man, I hope this game, showed all the haters and told all the haters everything that they need to know about Tua and who he is as a quarterback. Because there was a lot coming into this game. There's a lot on the line coming into this one. The Miami Dolphins took Tua over Justin Herbert just to pick before him. A lot of people were saying, they're probably going to regret this in the future, taking a guy like Tua over a guy like Justin Herbert. Obviously everything that happened last season between these two teams and how in the same exact stadium, same exact spot in December, the Miami Dolphins weren't able to beat this team. And that was probably one of the Tua's worst games of his career, especially one of the worst games last season in general when he was healthy. And then for them to just come out of everything that happened last season and come into this game week 1 with all the hype and everything that's on the line, for Tua to come out and ball like the way he did, man, it just silenced all the haters. Everybody that has something to say about Tua didn't have anything to say after the game. They don't have anything to say now. And it's very funny to see all these media outlets that were hating on Tua, all these guys that had something to say in the offseason, turn the table about him, turn the conversation around and say that, oh, he was the best quarterback to play this week. He was one of the best players. This is who he is. He's great if he could just stay healthy, blah, blah, blah. But when it was the offseason, they took all their shots possible. He said everything that they had to say about him, to slander him, to hate on him, for absolutely no reason. And so, for the Miami Dolphins, man, like I said, I was a believer from the beginning. I'm a very big believer in Tua. I think if he's able to stay healthy, this Miami Dolphins team will not only just win the division, they do have a shot at being Super Bowl contenders because of the guy they have under center and leading the way. And it's nice and fun when you have a guy like Tyreek Hill who's a cheat code on the field and could absolutely torch a defense. Going for 216 yards and 2 touchdowns. He made that look fairly easy. And I feel like the Miami Dolphins, although they played a very great game, there was a lot of food that was left out there on the table that they could have had. There was a lot of missed opportunities that they could have capitalized on, and this lead could have been a lot bigger than it was. This score could have been a lot different than it was. So they'll go ahead and fix that coming into next week. Mike McDaniels did a hell of a job at just going away from the run game. Obviously Raheem Mostert did finish with a touchdown, but the Miami Dolphins just said, man, these guys cannot guard our guys, whether it's Jalen Waddle, whether it's Tyreek Hill. And we trust our guy Tua to get these guys the ball in the right spots. You play man, they're going to torch you because of their speed. You play zone, they're going to find the open spot. And not only are they just going to find the open spot, they're going to take that catch and go an additional 10 to 15 yards, and continue to move the chains. And so overall, it's a great win for the Dolphins. And this is just the same old story for the Los Angeles Chargers, man. It's kind of similar to the Buffalo Bills, but in a different light and to a lesser degree. Their defense is always a big problem. Same thing carried over into this week. You give up 36 points and their offense puts up 34 points. You're supposed to be able to win that game. But, Brandon Staley got himself another season on this team, being the head coach of this franchise. I think if this season goes like how it went on Sunday for them, where they just keep on losing shootouts, he probably might not make it to the end of the season. They might just want a new voice in that locker room. And so the Los Angeles Chargers, Brandon Staley has to fix up, and I'm not too sure what more I can add on to that because this is something we've already seen before. This is the same reoccurring problem, for this Los Angeles Chargers football team, and I'm not too sure when, the change is going to happen on the defensive side of the ball. But overall, man, great win for the Miami Dolphins going into a very hostile environment in Los Angeles. Making the trip down there and coming out of this game victorious. But let's go ahead and move aside from all of these games and let's talk about the biggest surprise from Week 1 of the NFL season.
Biggest surprise from the NFL season. I think if I had to point it down to one thing, it was just how bad the league-wide the quarterback play was. You look at Josh Allen, you look at Joe Burrow, you look at Lamar Jackson, you look at Deshaun Watson, you look at Kenny. I feel like there was only maybe 4 quarterbacks that played good in this week. Tua, Stafford, Jordan Love, and Brock Purdy. I don't know if I can really name anyone else. Desmond Ridder, I don't think he played good. Bryce Young did not play good at all. He had 2 picks. CJ Stroud, no pressure was in his face constantly. He didn't play good. Anthony Richardson, I guess for his standards, but I'm not going to sit here and say he played great. He was probably top 5, and that's saying something. I think that's the thing that surprised me the most. It was just how bad the league-wide quarterback play was. I mean, across the field, you have all these level of quarterbacks across the league, and they all played bad somehow. I think that's the thing that shocked me the most. Just the league-wide quarterback play.
I agree with that, man. Throwing Geno Smith on that too. 3 yards of offense in the second half. It's a lot of shit quarterback play, to be honest. You forgot your boy though, Abdi. He hooped. Jordan Love, you got to shout him out.
I just mentioned him. He's one of the 3-4 quarterbacks that actually played well this week.
I feel like a lot of the games are slow offensively.
Yeah, they start off terribly slow.
Yeah, very, very slow. I feel like, this upcoming week, hopefully we get some fireworks. But, yeah, biggest surprise was just the quarterback play and how offenses were very slow on the field. A lot of defenses showed up. I feel like a lot of players on the defensive side of the ball making a name for themselves in this week 1. But, yeah, I wanted to just mention Sean Payne and the Broncos. Y'all are still shit. Russell Wilson is still shit. And that's all I got to say. Broncos are just some shit.
Yeah, I think, I'm going to definitely piggyback off what you guys just said right now. Outside of the quarterback play, there's, I don't like speaking about this franchise. I don't like speaking about, this team. But, I got to give credit to the Green Bay Packers, man, because that was probably my biggest surprise from this week, from week 1 of the NFL season. Just how, free-flowing those guys were offensively with their new quarterback, Jordan Love, under center. For Jordan Love to finish this game 245 and 3 tugs and keeping the ball out of harm's way with no interceptions. That was definitely a huge surprise to me because I thought the Chicago Bears defense, would give him a little bit of a hard time, a little bit of some pressure to force him to make some sort of error, especially with this guy, with this, this game being, a very big game for him. And I'm not too entirely sure if it's the first career start for the Green Bay Packers, but regardless, to start off the season as a QB1 for this franchise after everything that they've had, Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers, now to him, I thought he was going to struggle a little bit, man, but that was the complete opposite. And this was all without Christian Watson, which kind of scares me a little bit because their defense was playing lights out, but we've talked about their defense and how great it is. But now if you add this type of offense, into the mix, now with how wide open the NFC North is, these guys might have an opportunity and they might be able to prove my prediction wrong coming into the season, man. And Aaron Jones, I know he suffered a hamstring injury. I'm not too sure what the details are on that. We'll probably get some word on that in the next couple of days, whether or not he'll be able to go for next week because he had a pretty big game. 2 touchdowns, 82 receptions, 86 yards. But Romeo Dubs, 2 tugs, and then Christian Watson will be back in the mix as soon as he gets healthy. And so for Jordan Love to look that fluid and to look that good in week 1, that's what kind of surprised me the most, and also kind of scares me at the same time. It's sad to say because obviously I think my team is still better, but at the end of the day, man, credit to Green Bay Packers and Matt LaFleur for kind of trusting Jordan Love to take the reins from Aaron Rodgers and kind of just keep the ship steady and keep this thing moving forward. But that's definitely the one thing that surprised me. But aside from the surprises, let's go ahead and talk about the biggest disappointment from week 1 of the NFL season.
For me, it was definitely Joe Burrow. I mean, when you come in, you're the highest paid NFL player. You're a franchise quarterback, and I'd never want to overreact, but you come into this game and you're unable to perform in any capacity. Just regular first downs. Like there's no reason why Joe Burrow could not have performed this game. I understand weather conditions, weren't on his side at all. For him and Deshaun Watson, but when you come into this game, for him to not perform in any capacity and then ended up later on just getting benched because the game's kind of at a reach was a huge disappointment. This is a divisional rival. The Cleveland Browns, they have a chip on their shoulder. They're playing to win, and so when you come into this game and yet somehow, some way, you're unable to win, or even at least produce some level of offense, I think that was just a huge disappointment to me. I think. I understand this is probably piggybacking off my league-wide quarterback play, but especially for someone of Joe Burrow's caliber, a guy who's been to the Super Bowl, a guy who's been to the AFC Championship game, for him to come into this game and be able to not be able to produce any level of offense. You have Jamar Chase and you have T. Higgins, you have all these weapons, and you're not able to produce any level of offense. I think that's just extremely disappointing. And for the Cleveland Browns, shout out to them. Even with their bad quarterback play, they're still able to get the job done. But the biggest disappointment to me was Joe Burrow. I expected a little bit better from someone of his caliber.
Biggest disappointment for me, I'm going to say Seattle, man. 3 yards of total offense in the second half. That's pretty embarrassing for an NFL team. We couldn't muster anything in the second half. And it was just empty drives. 3 yards. Just imagine that. We lost the game 30-13. We got embarrassed. We're supposed to win this game by a lot. A lot of people were hyped about our defense coming into this game, especially our offense, but very disappointed just, bringing out 3 points in 3 yards in the second half. People, a lot of us fans of the Seattle complained about, hey, we're missing our right tackle, our left tackle got hurt, Tyler Lockett's hurt. I mean, still though, 3 yards of offense against a defense that's lost a lot of their key players, lost a lot of their star players on defense. We didn't really muster anything. And then on the offensive side of the ball for the Rams, they cooked us with Tutu Atwell and I'm gonna mispronounce
Paku,
his
something.
Paku Naku or something like that. They combined for 230 yards and a touchdown. So defensively, I was disappointed. Offensively, I was even more disappointed. As a team, I'm disappointed as a unit. Disappointed in DK Metcalf for all these stupid-ass penalties in the second half and then Quandre Diggs. And I think we racked up 75 penalty yards in the span of a minute and a half. It was just 5-6 penalties in a row. And that can't happen, especially in a game like this. So just disappointed the whole Seattle team. So that's all I wanted to say.
I think the Bears, for me as well, were disappointing considering what they invested in this offseason, surrounding Justin Fields. And for them to come into this game and basically just, get beat off the field. I think, they had a garbage time touchdown with Roshan Johnson, but outside of that, they weren't consistently producing offense. Justin Fields was, he was running around a lot. The offensive line seemed to collapse, more often than not. And then of course, he had that bad turnover. He threw it to Quay Walker and he took it back for a pick six. I think is a major disappointment for the Bears because, they came into the season, expecting the NFC North to be wide open with Aaron Rodgers' departure. And all of a sudden, they lose week one in terrible fashion to Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers. I think for them, that's an absolutely huge disappointment. Coming to this off season, what they invested in, what they surrounded Justin Fields with, and all of a sudden you just get beat at your home in week one. I think that's just a terrible loss.
I mean, it's kind of tough for Justin Fields to kind of do something when he's running for his life in that pocket, man. There was at least 7, 8, 9, 10 plays where this guy's under pressure constantly. So it's kind of tough for him to kind of create. I mean, give credit to your guys' defense for kind of bringing all that pressure, but their offensive line issues is still an issue. You can have all the playmakers in the world, but if those big guys up front can't block for more than 3-4 seconds at a time, it's going to be tough for a guy like Justin Fields to really do much. He had 9 carries for 59 yards, and he was tied for the leading rusher in terms of carries with the running back room, with Khalil Herbert coming in at tied for first with 9 carries. And so it's just tough for the Chicago Bears overall. But you are right though. I mean, obviously, you want to see these guys, make some improvement on what they try to improve off of what they did last year in the offseason. All the moves they made. You got to be able to take steps forward, and I think this one was just like 10 steps backwards. But their offensive line has to shape up. They got to give Justin Fields some time, and I think they'll be just all right. But for DJ Moore, I'm sure he still feels like he's in Carolina again with Baker Mayfield with the way that game went. But for me though, aside from the Chicago Bears and that Green Bay Packers game, the biggest disappointment for me coming out of this week, has to be no other than the Pittsburgh Steelers, man. There's a lot of hype surrounding this game. There's a lot of potential upsets coming from this game. A lot of people were saying the Steelers can come in and catch the Niners lacking in week one, kind of similar to what the Bears did last year to the Niners, like they did last year. But for the Pittsburgh Steelers to just come out extremely flat offensively, was just flat out embarrassing, man. Like obviously the Niners are a very, very great team. They're Super Bowl contenders, rain or shine, and we know how elite their defense is. We know how great their offense is. They're like a well-oiled machine, and it's going to be a competitive fight. But I thought the Pittsburgh Steelers were going to do a better job defensively because we all know that they have a great defense. Wasn't on display whatsoever yesterday against the Niners. And offensively, they took 0 strides in comparison to last year. All this hype surrounding their receiving room with Deontay Johnson and George Pickens in the preseason. Najee Harris not having a plate in his foot anymore, in his cleat. He was going to be able to rush for a lot of yards and be a very solid running back this week or just this year as a whole. Kenny Pickett taking a year 2 leap. We absolutely saw none of that in this specific game. Mike Tomlin did not have these guys prepared, and all the credit in the world to the Niners though for shutting up all the doubters and the haters. For the people that believe that there's going to be an upset in this game. They were the favorites -2.5, and they blew that spread out of the water. By winning by a huge margin. And so it's just like, the Pittsburgh Steelers, a lot of people were, the Vegas had some belief in them. They're going to keep this game close. And, if anything, they're going to lose this game by at least 3 points or less than that. And, it just wasn't the case. And so, I'm interested in seeing how, they take steps forward offensively, because I think defensively, they'll still end up shaping out how they're supposed to be. But offensively is where the issues lie. Kenny Pickett was not able to move the ball whatsoever. And kept bringing the defense back out on the field, and you can't give the Niners so many opportunities. Brandon Ayuk just completely dogging Patrick Peterson, not once but twice. That's Brock Purdy getting back at Patrick Peterson for all those shit talking comments he had earlier this week, talking about I'm gonna get a pick on you and things of that nature. And so, for the Pittsburgh Steelers, man, they got to go back to the drawing board, and now they have a tough opponent coming up as well. I believe this is a road game for them, whether you have to play the Cleveland Browns. It might be a home game for them. I'm going to have to fact check that. But regardless, it's going to be a tough game once again. It's going to be on Monday night. And so, they got to be able to muster up this loss and try to build off this and find something to build off of, going into this upcoming week, because, if they start off the season 0-2, it's going to be kind of hard to kind of bounce back from that going into the upcoming for the rest of the season, because their whole division is extremely tough, and they got to play the Bengals twice. You still got to play the Baltimore Ravens twice and the Cleveland Browns one more time after week 2. And so that's probably my most disappointing team coming out of this week. Seattle would definitely be another one of them as well. My own personal team would be another one of them as well. Obviously I'll speak on my guys for a little bit. I feel like this was a game that we kind of let slip out of our hands. 2 fumbles that were pretty bad. A missed blitz pickup. And we have our interior offensive lineman Ed Ingram just not picking up an assignment, or not picking up an assignment, but he was trying to run block and get the hole open for Alexander Madison. And he ended up swiping the ball out of Kirk Cousins' hands, and then KJ Osborne gets the ball snatched out of him when we're in the red zone as well. So it was just a lot of missed opportunities for us. I think we kind of shot ourselves in the foot in this game. I wouldn't say the Buccaneers did a hell of a job at beating us. They did make plays when they needed to, but overall, though, I think this loss was just really on us. And for Justin Jefferson to be extremely frustrated on the sidelines, I think it has a lot more to do with this, besides just this game itself. I think overall he's dealing with a whole lot of contract issues. I think him not getting paid before the season started, and then having an amazing first half, which didn't shock me whatsoever because it's Justin Jefferson. But then to go kind of quiet, for the offense to move away from him, it just kind of sucks. I understand his frustrations, but it's a little bit deeper than just what the game transpired out to be. It's a little bit deeper than just that matchup between the Buccaneers. I think he's extremely upset with the front office, with his future, his contract situation being up in the air, and then obviously, he's actually one of the few guys that are vouching for Kirk Cousins to stick around for the foreseeable future. But I guess the one standing out thing that kind of put a smile on us Vikings fans' faces was Jordan Addison making an appearance in this game, man. I think obviously, like I said, he's going to fit like a glove in this offense. But it'll be nice to see Kevin O'Connell not just wait it out with Jordan Addison as the season goes on and just kind of give him the touches here and there and give him reps here and there, but to just firmly announce that he's our wide receiver 2 for the future, because KJ Osborne is not our wide receiver 2. He cannot be our wide receiver 2. He is nothing more than a wide receiver 3. He's the Tyler Boyd for us, for our Minnesota Vikings club. Jordan Addison is going to be able to do great things for us, but he needs to be out there on the field a lot more. And so obviously we have a tough game against Philly. We might as well just chalk that one up in the air and give ourselves an L. But this season, I'm not really looking forward to us having some sort of crazy heroic season like we did last year.
Giving up already? It ain't even like,
oh man,
it's the game, man. What you mean? Chalk it up, give it an L.
No, my expectations, man, they're below the ground right now, man. It's not much to look forward to. I can't lie though. I was sitting there thinking, are we gonna be able to pull this off against the Buccaneers? Are we gonna have a last second comeback win? And next thing you know, we have 2 3-and-outs on our last 2 drives, and our defense was so bad we weren't able to get the ball back on that last drive. We made Baker Mayfield look like that number 1 overall pick. So it's just like if our defense can't get any stops and our offense is looking stagnant.
That's another 1-point game. That's another close game. But this time, like I said,
Baker Mayfield is a problem.
That's crazy. Like I said in the preseason prediction, like sooner or later, these close games, they're gonna go the opposite way, and it's gonna take a hit. But to Baker Mayfield, to me, man, it's crazy. He on that run play on the sideline, he talked his shit. He was just like, man, get your weight up. I can't let Baker Mayfield do that. I can't let Baker Mayfield do that.
That watching that clip hurt, man, because we literally just signed that guy from the Cardinals. He's our cornerback 1, and he's out here getting bullied by Baker Mayfield out of all quarterbacks in the league. And so, there's not much to really look forward to on the defensive side of the ball, man. We have our struggles, you have our flashes, but all the late season heroics, I don't think it'll carry over to this year. And like I said, man, the winner of this division will have 9 to 10 wins max, and we got to be able to win the games that are easy for us. The games that look the best, the easiest to win, and this was one of those games, and we were supposed to come out of a win with this week, and we just didn't. And obviously the Bears lost, and the Lions and the Packers were able to get wins. And the Packers, obviously, that game could have gone either way, but the Packers won. But the Lions weren't supposed to win that game against Kansas City, but unfortunately, obviously they did. But we'll see how the season goes. But like I said, my expectations are below the ground right now, so I'm not really too excited. But next game is on Thursday, very short week. We're able to upset the Eagles, I'll be a happy camper on our next episode following that. But before we move on from this whole entire episode and close it out, obviously we're going to talk about who was the most impressive quarterback in week 1, but I think we can just agree as a whole that it was Tua. But I need to hear you guys say it was Tua that was the most impressive quarterback this week.
Of course, you got to take your wins where you get them. I mean, Tua was the best quarterback in week 1. I think that should be pretty obvious. It's a consensus pick. He was the best quarterback, but the season isn't 1 week, so let's keep that in mind.
It's going to be a lot more weeks where that came from, man.
This guy's so happy over here. He's running here.
It's my guy, man. You guys are hating on him, bro.
Best quarterback this week. He can hold the week 1, standings.
I don't know who they got next week, but he might just be the best quarterback next week too, man. Depending on who they got. But yeah, I think it's a general consensus that Tua is the best. It was the best quarterback coming out of week 1. We'll see who it is week 2 when we talk about it following in our week 2 recap. But with that being said, though, any final words before we close out this episode here?
Man, on to 2-0. I love starting off with 1-0, man. 2-0 is what I'm aiming for next. Let's get it. We see Desmond Ridder. I need that.
What was the prediction this week?
Yeah, I just got it pulled up right now. So we got well, it's pretty easy. We all finished with 9-7 records. We all tried to get one up on each other with some games, but essentially we all ended up evening out with a 9-7 record. And so all of our week 2 picks, of course, will be posted on Instagram. We'll also do a week 2 pick 'em in our next episode as well. We just kind of mistimed everything this past weekend, and so we'll get right back on track with that. But of course, week 1 was a very slow week. I'm looking forward to fireworks week 2. A lot of guys just airing the ball out and having great games. A lot of these elite quarterbacks that didn't play well last week, I hope they play well this upcoming week because football is back, man. And I'm very, very excited. But with that being said, let's go ahead and close out this episode here. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. We really appreciate your love and support. We'd greatly appreciate it if you like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at New Media Podcast. And for those of you that are watching us on YouTube, all of our social media handles will be at the end of this video. And if you're listening to us on Apple and Spotify, if you go to our Instagram page at New Media Podcast, you'll be able to navigate yourself to all of our social media handles there. So once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And of course, we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Record a new hit, then we making us a film. Wouldn't sign a deal if I got a couple mil. Been in the lab, now they throwing out deals. Me and now Lakes, now that's overkill.